So you want to be a concept artist?
Hey guys, so it's been a few months since my last vlog, or my first one actually, and this is finally getting around to the second one, and I'll try to be a little more diligent about pumping these out. And to carry on, I'll continue to focus on art, in particular, for lack of a better phrase, digital entertainment, predominantly video games, but also as it relates to comics, animation, film, that kind of thing. With being a concept artist, how exactly do you approach that in pursuing that as a career? Just to give you a little background from where I'm coming from, I actually started in art fairly late in the game. I actually did my degree in finance and economics, if you believe it or not. I didn't do it very well, but I did get the degree. And that was simply for no other reason than I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, and that seemed practical enough. But in hindsight, I realized I always liked to draw, and eventually it came to a point in my life where I realized I want to pursue it, so I went to the Joe Kubert School in New Jersey.
Joe Kubert is an American comic book artist, best known for his work on DC titles such as Sergeant Rock and Hawkman Eitherlady.
In pursuit of a career as a comic book artist. And while I was there, I realized actually that's not quite for me. However, it did give me basis and foundation in drawing, and various techniques and things like that I use today. So that was from 96 to 98. Following that, I did a year of working in a 2D animation studio in Vancouver. So it was very unglamorous work, but I got my foot in the door. I was basically doing cleanup art, taking someone else's sketch and tracing over it and producing a cleaner line. So that's why it's called cleanup. And maybe a smidge of storyboarding. I did a little bit of storyboarding, not that much. And this was for children's shows, two in particular. It was Sabrina the Teenage Witch, the animated series, and PB&J Otter, which was another cartoon from the Disney Network targeted at toddler age. So yeah, it wasn't glamorous work, but at the same time I was grateful because it was still art related, and it did get my foot in the door as far as being in the art industry goes. From that point on, it was about maybe 6 months or to a year that I was just kind of still searching for other work, for follow-up work, even some freelance work here and there, not very much. But eventually it brought me to Toronto, my introduction to the video game industry, and I worked for a company called Pseudo Interactive.
The Pseudo Interactive, they make the game Cell Damage, Full Auto, and Full Auto 2 Battle Line. Okay, thank you.
And at the time it was very young. It was a startup, but a startup with potential because they had just secured funding from Microsoft at the time. And there was 19 people, and they were looking for concept artists. They didn't have one yet. And it was just perfect timing because of I was coming from a cartooning animation background, and they needed that for the game they were working on. So that's how that came about. And I was very new and very green in terms of my experience and my skill set. However, it matched where I was, where the company was at, and what they could afford and what I was willing to be paid. So all those kind of things came into consideration and really coming together. The company itself grew, and I was there for about 7 years. And as it grew, I got more experience, and my skill set grew as well, and the same goes for the company and all those who worked there. And then, it's just the way the industry goes. There was a round of layoffs, including myself and a bunch of other mid-management, and eventually the company unfortunately closed doors. But that's part and parcel with the industry. And I've been freelancing, I'd say, for the last 5 years for concept art for video games, but as well illustration for pen and paper games, some toys, a little bit of advertising. I did a children's graphic novel as well. A little broader spectrum, but still related to, I would say, digital entertainment, because that's my background, my forte, and what I like to do. Some students will ask me, how are you able to start off right away as a concept artist? What I tell them is to remember the context and bigger perspective of the situation. I didn't start off as a concept artist for a huge company, like say like BioWare or Ubisoft or EA or something like that. Remember, it was a smaller company and still early in the stage of development as a company and as individuals and as artists and programmers, and so was I. So I would never have been able to start off as a concept artist elsewhere. I mean, not at a big established company, but because of where Sudo was at and where I was at, it was a good fit. How do you prepare yourself to go about pursuing this career? Obviously, you need to draw well, but I would say equal to that is have a passion for it, and that would seem kind of obvious, but it's not always the case. Just because you draw well or you're talented doesn't mean you're set out to be a concept artist specifically or an illustrator. The way I look at it is talent is a head start. Some people are high on the talent pool, some people are low, but at the end of the day it comes down to your time and commitment. I've seen people who may be very kind of rough around the edges as far as their drawing goes, but keep at it day in, day out, and they'll show me their work 3 months later, and I wouldn't have recognized them as the same artist because of that much time and commitment and observation and study as well as practice they put into their drawing. Definitely if you're talented, that's a huge plus, but again, it's not enough. You really need to put the sacrifice. You really have a passion for it, and it's like anything I would say in life or any type of career, but particularly in games, everything is about time. It's a fast turnaround time. Time is money, so budget and the time allotted are all factors. Say you have one artist who's extremely talented, but not that reliable, not that motivated, doesn't follow directions well. And you have a second artist who maybe not quite as talented, but has the skills, but perhaps more importantly is the fact that he is very reliable, very committed, receives and gives feedback well, and provides what is needed for a project under the gun and provides it well. That's what I mean when I say talent. It's good to have, but it's only a head start. If you don't have the discipline or the motivation behind it, it'll fizzle out. Because I teach at actually 2 different schools who are 2 different approaches, but both are specifically video game development, it's kind of a misnomer. People think that, oh, if I go into this video game program, that will guarantee me a job in the industry. No, that's not the case at all. It still comes down to your skills, the time it takes for you to develop it. I mean, a video game program never existed before. It's a very new phenomenon. Those people, myself included, who have worked in games or continue working the games for a while, didn't go to some video game specific education, but they did learn stepping stones to be able to pursue a career in games or things related to it. So in the case of concept art, solid drawing foundation is needed. You need to know anatomy, so you need life drawing. You need to know perspective. You need to kind of understand and be able to observe the world around you well and translate that into drawing. All are necessary, whether you're a concept artist, an illustrator, comic book artist, cartoonist, whatever. The stronger your drawing foundation, the better off you will be, and the more likely you'll be able to secure work. Now, before I go any further, I should probably distinguish the difference between a concept artist and an illustrator in particular. Where that differs is a concept artist, the primary focus is ideas and creative process and bringing ideas to life. You're forming like worlds out of nothing pretty much, especially in the case of science fiction and fantasy. So just because you're a very skilled illustrator does not necessarily mean you're a very good concept artist, because there's a lot of people who are very skilled at drawing, but they really come to a roadblock coming up with designs for things. And not only that, coming up with designs very fast, because that's very necessary as a concept artist. Finished work is actually a small percentage. It's more about cranking out these ideas, solid ideas, to eventually evolve to a final design. So when you see like a character, for example, and you think, oh, this is a brilliant character, it's a cool design, it wasn't some artist just drew it once and nailed it. That's never the case. Especially if it's a bigger project, bigger company, then more time and budget is allowed for exploration of concepts. Okay. So in many cases, you may see a final character that went through at least a dozen design iterations to get to that point. You draw it a couple times. Oh, I like the pose in this. In later drawings, oh, I like what you added in the costume, or the face change, or the body language change. And all these, you take these bits and pieces until you finally get the final design to be the ideal concept that will eventually be turned into either a 3D model or what have you. That's an important distinction to make, is that the difference between a concept artist and an illustrator. Whereas an illustrator, yes, you still need to be perceptive and be able to take what you see, either reference when you're looking at a picture or in your mind, and be able to translate that into a drawing. Just because you illustrate well, you have to ask yourself, am I creative? Do I come up with ideas very quickly and very original? There's always going to be artists who are considered more talented than you, and there's going to be artists that are considered not as talented as you, for whatever that means. But we should never look at it in terms of I'm better than this guy, or this guy's better than me. First of all, it's not very productive, but it really comes down to, are you as an artist evolving? And within that, find your niche at what you do. So if there's a certain style or certain thing about your work that makes it unique, and you do it well, that would take precedence, hopefully, as opposed to trying to be the best artist out there, because you have to have some kind of focus. So a lot of times when you look at, say, various artists' websites, in most cases you'll find that the work that they showcase and the work that's on their resume correlate. Okay, it shouldn't really be a surprise. And so let's look at a few artists right now, maybe 5 or 6, and we'll pull up some art and I'll talk about it.